something solid to stand on. A Bible study on Genesis chapter 1, verses 9 through 13. Can I tell you about a season I spent waiting for ground? Not ground I could see, not land I could touch, just something solid, something that would hold my weight, something that would stop the floating. I had been in a long stretch where nothing felt stable. The job I thought was permanent had an expiration date I did not know about. The relationship I thought was a foundation turned out to be a raft. The plan I had mapped out so carefully had come apart in my hands in a way I still could not fully explain to anyone who asked. And so I was doing what you do when the plan falls apart. I was treading water. I was staying afloat. I was keeping my head up. I was showing up to things and smiling and answering, I'm okay, when people asked. And inside, I was exhausted in the specific way that only comes from treading water for too long. You know that exhaustion. It is different from the exhaustion of hard work. Hard work exhaustion has something to show for itself. You are tired, but the floor is clean. You are tired, but the project is done. You are tired, but there is fruit. Treading water exhaustion has nothing to show. You are tired, and you are in the exact same place you were before you started. You are moving, but you are not going anywhere. You are expending everything, and nothing is changing. You are surviving, but you are not standing, because standing requires ground. And what do you do when there is no ground? What do you do when every direction you look, it is water? When you cannot see a horizon because the waves keep rising? When you have been waiting so long for something solid to emerge that you have started to wonder if solid is even still a possibility for someone like you? I need you to hold that question, hold it close, because today we are going to read 5 verses that God wrote specifically for people who are treading water, specifically for the ones who have been waiting and waiting and waiting for solid ground to appear. Today, we arrive at day 3 of creation, and what God does on day 3 is not complicated, but it is profound. He does not add something new from the outside. He commands the chaos to move back. He tells the water to go to its place. And out of that act of divine command, the ground rises, not because it was built, not because someone went down into the deep and laid a foundation, but because God spoke and the chaos obeyed. And what was always there underneath the flood finally had room to appear. And I need you to hear that, because there are things in your life that are not gone. They are just under the water. They are not destroyed. They are just waiting for the word that tells the chaos to move back. We are in Genesis chapter 1. We are not rushing. We are staying at the table. We are pulling back the layers slowly, because every word in this passage was placed here with intention and weight, and we are not going to miss a single one. Let us open it together. Here is what Genesis chapter 1, verses 9 through 13 says. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the third day. 5 verses. That is it. And yes, if you have been with us from the beginning, You already know what I am going to say. Do not let the simplicity fool you, because everything we need is in here. We just have to slow down enough to find it. Before we go one word further, I need to take you back to the scene for just a moment, because context is everything. If you do not know what the stage looks like before the curtain rises, you will miss the weight of what you are watching. In verse 2 of this same chapter, we learned that the earth was tohu vavohu, formless, void, chaos, dark. And we said that everything was water, not water as we know it, not water with a shore, just water everywhere, above and below and in every direction. No distinction, no land, no horizon, just the deep, moving, uncontained, shapeless flood of uncreated potential. Then, on day one, God spoke light into the dark. On day two, God drew a line between the waters above and the waters below and called what he made sky, the rakia, the stretched expanse, the hammered boundary that gave creation room to breathe. And now it is day three. The sky is in place. The light and dark have their names, but the earth itself, still, just water. The ground has not appeared yet. The land is there, underneath all of it, but it is submerged. It is hidden under the weight of the flood. It has been there the whole time. It is not missing. It has not been destroyed. It is just covered, buried under water that has not yet been told where to go. And here is the thing I want you to sit with before we even get to the Hebrew. There is a difference between something being gone and something being submerged. Gone means it does not exist anymore. Gone means it has been removed, destroyed, ended, taken from you permanently. Submerged means it is still there, still intact, still real, still present. It just cannot be seen yet because the water has not moved. There is something in your life right now that you have been calling gone, that God has been calling submerged. There is something you have written off, something you have grieved as a permanent loss, a dream that you stopped naming because naming it hurt too much, a calling you filed away because the flood came and covered it and you figured that if it were real, it would have survived the water. A version of yourself that you last felt on solid ground before the hard season began, before the relationship ended, before the door closed, before the diagnosis, before the loss. And you look at the water that is still covering everything and you think, whatever was there is gone. But I am standing in Genesis chapter 1, verse 9 right now. And I am telling you what God is about to do. He is about to tell the water to move. Now, here's the word I need you to hold in your hands for a moment. The Hebrew word for what happened to the waters in verse 9 is the word kava. It is spelled Qavah. Say it with me. Kava. Kava. Now, your Bible might translate it as gathered. The water was gathered to one place, and that is accurate. But the word does so much more than gathered. Kava means to be bound together, to be collected, to be drawn toward a single point with intention and direction. And at its root, it carries the image of twisted strands of rope being drawn together under tension toward a destination. Like you are taking what was loose and free-flowing and uncontained in every direction, and drawing it, binding it, coiling it toward where it belongs. But here is the part that stopped me cold the first time I saw it. This exact word, kava, this word for gathering water toward its place, is the same root word used in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31, where the prophet writes, "Those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength." Wait, in Hebrew, kava, the same word God uses to describe what the waters did when he commanded them to move, is the word the Bible uses for what you are doing when you are waiting on God. Think about what that means. Think about what God is showing you in the layered beauty of his own language. When you are waiting on the Lord, you are not passively doing nothing. You are not just surviving. You are not just treading water and hoping something changes. In the Hebrew imagination, kava means you are being drawn, you are being gathered. The loose, scattered, uncontained pieces of you, your questions, your grief, your exhaustion, your unanswered prayers, your still submerged dreams. They are being collected by the hand of God and directed toward the place he prepared. Waiting on the Lord is not the opposite of moving forward. Waiting on the Lord is the movement. It is the gathering. It is the water being drawn to where it belongs so that what is underneath can finally emerge. So when you feel like you are just waiting, when you feel like you are standing still while life moves on without you, when you feel like your prayer is going nowhere and your faith is on its last reserves, I need you to hear what the Hebrew is quietly telling you. You are not stuck. You are kava. You are being gathered toward where you belong. And when the gathering is complete, the ground is going to rise. And God said, "Let dry ground appear." Do not rush past those two words, dry ground. Because I think most of us, when we imagine what we are waiting for, we imagine it is going to look spectacular. We imagine the thing God sends is going to come with trumpets and light and all at once, like a movie moment. We imagine that when the answer finally comes, everyone around us is going to see it too. We imagine full bloom from the first moment. We imagine that when God finally moves, what appears is going to look as lush and complete as what we envisioned in our best daydream. But the first thing God brought up out of the water was not a garden, it was dry ground. Not green, not lush, not flowering, not yet even soft, just solid, just ground that could hold weight, just land that could be named, just something you could put your foot on and not sink. And God looked at it and he said, "Tov, good." This is exactly what I meant. He did not say, "Let me wait until it is more impressive before I call it good." He did not say, "Let me hold my assessment until it has produced something worthy of evaluation." He looked at the plain, unadorned, just emerged from the water dry ground, and he called it good. That tells me something about how God evaluates stages. Because we live in a world that only calls things good when they are finished, when they are polished, when they are presentable, when they have something to show. We celebrate arrival. We applaud completion. But dry ground is not completion. Dry ground is the condition that makes completion possible. Dry ground is what has to appear before a single seed can be planted. Dry ground is not the destination. Dry ground is the foundation. And here is where this lands in your life today. There are seasons God gives you that do not look like answers yet. They do not look like what you asked for. They look plain. They look quiet. They look like, well, at least the flood has gone back a little. At least something is solid. At least I can put my foot down without sinking. They look like the version of okay that is not yet good, not yet thriving, not yet full, but stable, solid, able to bear weight. That is Yabasha. That is dry ground. And that is not something to apologize for. Do not despise the dry ground season. Do not look at the solid, quiet, unadorned thing God has given you and call it not enough because it does not look like the garden yet. The ground came up before the garden did. That is not a design flaw. That is the design. He had to give you something to stand on before he could give you something to grow in. Now, let us take a moment with the Hebrew word for dry ground itself, because it deserves to be seen. The word is yabasha, pronounced ya-ba-sha. Say it slowly. Ya-ba-sha. Yabasha. And the root of this word is interesting. It comes from a root that means to be dried, to be firm, to be made solid from what was once soft or liquid. The same root appears later in the Hebrew scriptures in the word for drought. And in some contexts, it appears in descriptions of a land that has been hardened by the sun. Now stick with me, because this is not bad news. This is the bridge. We tend to hear the words dry and hard and think desolate. We hear dried out and we picture something dead. But the Bible is not using this word to describe a wasteland. It is using this word to describe the precondition for life. The ground had to be firm enough to hold something. It had to be solid enough to receive the seed. Soft mud cannot anchor roots. Waterlogged soil cannot produce a harvest. Ground that has never firmed up will swallow a seed and drown it. The dryness is the readiness. Think about it this way. Think about the way a good baker prepares a surface before she rolls out dough. She does not roll it on a wet counter. She does not work on a soft, yielding surface that is going to absorb everything it touches. She dusts the surface. She makes it firm. She creates the conditions under which what she is working with will hold its shape, maintain its structure, and become what she intends it to be. God was preparing the surface. What looked like barrenness was actually preparation. What looked like emptiness was actually readiness. The ground was not too dry. It was perfectly, intentionally dry. Just firm enough, just solid enough, just ready enough to receive what God was about to speak into it. And some of you are in a Yabasha season right now. It feels dry. It feels like nothing is growing. It feels like you have been stripped back to the bare minimum. No lushness, no abundance, no visible fruit, just the quiet, firm, not yet bloomed reality of a life that has been through the flood and has had the water move back. And now you are standing on something solid, but it does not look like anything yet. That is not the end of your story. That is the surface being prepared. That is God firming up the ground so it can hold what he is about to plant. Do not confuse Yabasha for Yabasha's sake. Dry ground is not the goal. Dry ground is the readiness. The garden is coming. And then God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, trees that bear fruit with seed in it, each one according to its kind. And here is where I need to slow down more than anywhere else in this passage, because what God does next is so quiet and so layered that it is easy to read right past it and miss the entire miracle. He does not plant the garden himself. He speaks to the ground, and the ground produces. He does not reach down and press each seed into the soil by hand. He does not design each plant individually and set it in its place. He speaks a word to the dry ground he just made, and the dry ground brings forth life from within itself. The capacity to produce was already there, inside the ground, waiting, latent, hidden under the water during all the days of the flood. And all it needed was the word of God and the right conditions God had created for it, and it produced. Do you see what this means? God did not create the garden on top of the ground. He created the garden out of the ground. The source of the garden was already in what looked barren and empty and not yet anything. The life was inside the Yabasha. I need you to let that land. Because right now, some of you are looking at what is left after the flood receded. You are standing on something solid at last, which is good, but it looks plain and unimpressive, and you cannot see anything growing yet. And you are wondering, is this it? Did I survive the water just to stand on bare ground? Did God bring me through just for this? And the answer of Genesis 1, verse 11 is, the garden you are looking for is not somewhere else. It is not something God is going to send from outside of you. It is already in you, already planted in the ground of who you are. The seed of what you are meant to produce is already inside the very thing you are standing on. It has just been waiting for the word that gives it permission to come forth. Now, here is the word I cannot skip. The Hebrew word for seed in this passage is zerah, zerah, zerah. And zerah is one of the most important words in the entire Hebrew Bible, not just because it means seed in the biological sense, but because seed in the Hebrew imagination is how blessing travels across time. Think about what a seed is. Really, sit with it. A seed is a complete future in a dormant present. A seed looks like it is nothing. It looks like it is finished. It looks like a small, hard, dead thing that does not have much to show for itself. You could hold it in your palm and have no idea what it contains. You could look at it and not be able to name the tree it carries, the fruit it will produce, the shade it will one day offer to people who have not yet been born. It looks like an ending, but it is a beginning that has not yet been told it can begin. And here's what God says about the plants and the trees. He speaks into being on day 3. He says, they bear fruit with seed in it according to its kind. The fruit itself contains the next generation. Every piece of fruit God makes is carrying the future inside of it. The apple is not just an apple. Inside the apple, wrapped in sweetness, is the seed of the next tree. Inside the next tree will be the next apple. Inside the apple will be the next seed. And on, forward through time, multiplying, spreading, covering the earth with life that all traces back to one word God spoke over a piece of dry ground on the 3rd day. That is how God designs things to grow, not one at a time, in multiplication. Each thing he creates, carrying the seed of the next thing inside it. Each season of your life, carrying inside it the seed of who you are becoming. Each wound carrying the seed of the ministry you cannot yet see. Each loss carrying the seed of the compassion you will one day offer to someone who needs it more than they can say. Each dry season carrying, hidden deep within it, the seed of the harvest that is coming. You are not empty. You are Yabasha with zerah inside you. You are dry ground, carrying seed that the flood could not drown. You are standing in the in-between, in the quiet, in the plain-looking firmness of a season that has not bloomed yet. But the life is already in there. God spoke, and the ground produced. And what God speaks over you is not decoration. It is activation. I want to tell you something about how seeds work, because I think we have a wrong picture of it. And the wrong picture is keeping some of us from trusting the process. When a seed is planted in the ground, the first thing it does is break open, not bloom, not grow upward, not reach for the light. It breaks open. The hard outer shell that protected the life inside it during all its dormant time cracks. The seed has to be cracked before it can grow. The outer layer that kept it intact during the flood, during the storage, during the waiting, has to be surrendered, has to be given up. The seed has to lose the form it has been holding just to hold itself together so that the life inside can come out. And for a little while, from the outside, it looks like something is dying. Because from the outside, you cannot see what is happening underground. You cannot see the cracking. You cannot see the first white thread of a root pushing down into the dark. You cannot see the shoot pushing up through the soil toward light. It cannot even see yet. You cannot see any of it. All you see is the surface of the ground, unchanged, still, dry, quiet. And if you do not know what a seed does underground, you would walk past that patch of soil and say, nothing is growing here. But something is growing. It is just growing in the dark first. It is just going down before it goes up. It is just cracking open, which looks like falling apart before it produces what it was always meant to produce. Do not let the quiet surface of this season fool you into thinking nothing is happening. If God has spoken over your life, and He has, then something is happening underground. Something is cracking open that needed to crack open. Something is going down, going deeper, establishing roots in a dark it cannot see, reaching toward water it cannot taste yet. Something is becoming what it was designed to become. It just has not broken the surface yet, but it will, because that is what God's word does. It does not just activate things once and leave. It is still in there, still working, still doing what He said. The word that cracked the seed open is still in that seed. The word that told the dry ground to produce is still in that ground. The word God has spoken over your life is still in your life, still working, still producing, still on its way to the surface. Do not give up because it looks quiet up here. The most important work is happening where you cannot see. Now, here's where I have to take you to the New Testament, because we cannot leave day 3 without going to the passage that reaches all the way back and touches it. There is a moment in the Gospel of John, chapter 12, where Jesus is speaking to a crowd in the days just before His crucifixion. And He says something that sounds on the surface like a lesson about farming, but it is not a lesson about farming. He says this, "Very truly, I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." Now, here is what I need you to understand. Jesus is not teaching agriculture. He is explaining what is about to happen to Him. He is telling the crowd, I am the seed. I am the grain of wheat, and I am about to fall to the ground, and it is going to look like death. It is going to look like the end. It is going to look like the hard outer shell is cracking, the form is breaking, the thing you thought was permanent is being lost forever. And I need you to trust what you cannot see. Because what you cannot see is that the life inside will not be extinguished by the ground. The life inside will be multiplied by the ground. He went into the earth like a seed, and He came up like a harvest. He went down into the dark on Friday, and on Sunday morning, the ground could not hold Him. And because He came out, because the ground produced, because death did not have the final word over the word himself. Everyone who has ever been in him is a seed that will also produce. Everyone who places their life in the hand of the one who made the ground and made the seed and made the word that activates them both, that person has the harvest of resurrection promised to them. Do you hear what day 3 of Genesis is quietly pointing toward? The dry ground that appears, the seed planted in the earth, the life that comes up from what seemed like it was just ground, just barren, just finished. That is the pattern. That is God's signature. He has been telling us the same story since the third day of creation. Things that go into the ground are not gone. They are being planted. And what is planted by the hand of God does not stay in the ground. It rises. And God saw that it was good. He said it twice in this passage, once for the dry ground, once for the vegetation. He did not say it once for the finished thing. He said it twice, for the process and for the product, for the plain, dry ground, and for the fruit that came from it. Because both of them were good. Both of them were exactly what he intended. The ground was not inferior because it had not yet bloomed. The fruit was not more beloved than the dry land that produced it. God looked at every stage and said, Tov, this is exactly what I meant. This is right. This is beautiful in its rightness. This is good. You are not only worthy of God's Tovi when you are producing. You are worthy of his Tov in the dry ground season, when you are solid but not yet fruitful, when you are firm but not yet flowering, when you can be stood on but cannot yet be harvested from. He looked at that. He saw you in that. And he said, good. That is what he said. That is what he means. And that is not a word anyone or anything has the authority to take from you. Here is the whole picture of what we walked through today. In verses 9 through 13, we see God doing 3 things. First, he commands the waters to gather. He tells the chaos to go to its place. He does not fight the water. He does not argue with the deep. He speaks, and the water obeys. And what was underneath the flood is finally free to rise. Second, he declares the dry ground good, not the garden, not the fruit, the plain, quiet, unimpressive, just emerged yabasha. And he calls it tav before anything has grown from it. Because good is not only what God says when the work is complete. Good is also what God says about the condition that makes completion possible. Third, he speaks to the ground and the ground produces. He does not reach in and manufacture life from the outside. He speaks, and the life that was already in the ground, the life that had been there waiting through all the days of the flood, comes out. The capacity was always there. The word was what the capacity was waiting for. And this is still what God does in human lives. In this very season, he is still commanding waters to go to their place. He is still looking at the quiet, plain, not yet bloomed version of you and calling it good. He is still speaking to the ground of who you are and calling forth the life that the flood could not drown. What he did on day 3, he is still doing on your day. I want to leave you with something that has been sitting in me the whole time we have been walking through this passage. The story of Noah comes much later in Genesis, but I think about it here because it rhymes with day 3 in a way I cannot ignore. You know the story. The flood comes. Everything is covered. The whole earth is water, water everywhere, in every direction. No land, no horizon, no ground. And Noah and the people with him wait and wait and wait. And then one day, Noah sends out a dove, and the dove comes back with an olive leaf in its beak. And that olive leaf, that single leaf from a tree that had been underwater for months and had survived, told Noah what Genesis chapter 1 is telling you. The ground is out there. It is already there. It emerged before you could see it, before the water finished receding, before you had proof, before the moment felt certain. Something was already growing on land you could not yet reach. The dove found it first. And then the water finished moving, and Noah stepped out of the boat onto dry ground, ground that had survived the flood, ground that had been covered but not destroyed, ground that had held its form under all that water, because ground does not dissolve. Ground just waits, and it was Tovi. That is what God is telling you today. The dry ground is out there. It has already emerged. Maybe you cannot see it yet. Maybe the water has not finished moving, but the word has already been spoken. The kava has already begun. The zera is already cracking open in the dark underground, and the roots are already going down, and the shoot is already going up, and you cannot see it from where you are standing, but it is there. He already said Tovi over it. He already put your name in it. Your job right now is not to manufacture the ground. Your job is not to force the bloom. Your job is not to reach into the flood and claw your way to something solid. Your job is kava, to wait on the Lord, to be gathered, to be collected and directed toward where He is taking you. The one who told the water to move the first time can tell the water in your life to move too. He has not forgotten what He planted in you. He has not lost track of the seed, and He is still speaking the word that brings life up out of the ground. Do not give up before the shoot breaks the surface. The prophet Isaiah wrote in chapter 55, verses 10 and 11, "As the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return to it without watering the earth and making it bud and flourish, so that it yields seed for the sower and bread for the eater, so is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it." That is the Zerah. That is the Yabashah. That is the God of day 3. His word does not go out and come back with nothing. His word goes into the ground and produces every single time. Before you go, I want to leave you with one question to carry with you today. What in your life have you been calling gone that God might be calling submerged? And are you willing to trust the process happening underground, even when you cannot see anything breaking the surface yet? Sit with that. Let it work its way through you through the rest of your day. And when you are ready, drop it in the comments below. You do not have to have it figured out. You just have to be honest. What is the dry ground season in your life right now? What is the seed you have stopped believing in? This is a safe place. We are in this together. If today's word is something somebody in your life needs to hear, share it. You never know who is standing on dry ground right now, feeling like nothing is growing, not realizing that the roots are already going down in the dark. Maybe this is the word they need to keep going. And if you have not already, subscribe and turn on your notifications, because day 4 is coming And on day 4, God is going to do something with the lights in the sky that changes everything about how we understand seasons and times and the question of whether God knows what day it is in your life. Trust me, you do not want to miss it. I will see you there.